All right, so I got my guy Matt Choi here. Hey, first and foremost, who is Matt?
That is quite the question. One, I'm happy to be here. My name is Matt Choi. I am a personal trainer, health and wellness coach, nutritionist. I do a lot of stuff in the health and wellness field, but just like when I used to play football, I used to think that I was just a football player. And even now, like, I'm more than a trainer, I'm more than a runner, I'm more than a nutritionist. I think as people, like, we really are as limitless as we like to be. So really, I think for people that know me, I think honestly, I am just a wholehearted person. I am very energetic. I have a ton of passion, very optimistic, and I try to just provide positivity and kindness to anyone I meet. And I think if that is the reaction you get from Matt Choi, that is what I want you to remember me as, not as someone who played college football, not someone who ran 100 miles, not someone who did the Goggins challenge or anything else. Like, I just want to be remembered as a good human being, and that is who Matt Choi is.
It's funny you touched on the Goggins challenge because I got a whole list of stuff to run through about the stuff that you did. So just because you started off with the Goggins challenge, so the 4x4x4x48.
Yeah.
So which is 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, right?
Yes, sir.
Then we're gonna go ahead with the 2 marathons, 2 ultras, Grindstone 100 miler,
which you was a part of.
And that was shameless plug, right? And then this is one that I wanted to get to. Now you got the Philly Marathon coming up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that?
Yes, I mean, Mark just listed a whole bunch of different things I've done in the past, and I really am the type of person that I don't like to rest on my laurels, rest on my dubs. Like, these were all great experiences for me in the past, but I'm always thinking about what's next and what can I do to challenge myself now. And he brought up the Philly Marathon, which is coming up here in 20 days, November 22nd. And it's going to be an awesome opportunity because I've never completed a marathon, like an official race. The 2 marathons I've done in the past were just kind of on my own, unofficially just, roaming the streets of Montgomery County. So the one in Philly, I think it's going to really provide me an opportunity to see, where I stack up right now, because I had an opportunity to be in the Boston Marathon and as a witness, as a spectator, and just seeing the energy in Boston was just something so unreal. And it's different than Grindstone. It's different than ultra marathon, just because I tell people all the time, like, ultras aren't really that sexy. Like, when you think about ultras, like, you're in the mountains, you're in the woods, you're not really getting as much of a crowd applause. And not that you should do races because of the crowd, but there is something different about a city marathon. And, my goal is to qualify for Boston in 2022. So you need to qualify with a sub 3-hour marathon for my age demographic. So you need to do that in an official race before you can get into Boston. So people have the wrong idea. Like, to run the Boston Marathon, it's a very legendary thing because you have to qualify for the race. Like, you can't just be someone who's just getting into running and then tries to run the Boston Marathon. Like, for basically every demographic, for males and females and age groups, there's a certain time that you have to qualify for. So my goal for Philly is to run the best time I can get right now in very little amount of training. And it's going to be a good benchmark, a good foundation for me to see, okay, this is where I sit at now, and these are the things I need to work on to then qualify for Boston April of 2022. So I'm looking forward to it, bro. Like, it's going to be a good challenge, and it's going to be different than the 100 miler. But different in a good way.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's you right now, right? You're 27, 26.
26.
26. All right. So I kind of want to rewind time.
Yeah.
And jump back to early day Matt, right?
Yeah.
So, like, how does your upbringing, like, tie into your life now, or does it not?
Yeah.
Was it something that you reinvented and recreated for yourself?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think as people, as humans, like, we all have upbringings that have created who we are today, right? Like, your childhood, how your parents raised you, or how your grandparents or whoever raised you as you were a kid, it forms who you become as a person. And I think being raised in a single mother household, seeing my mom and my dad, separately working their ass off to put food on the table for me and my brother, like, seeing parents, like, I was having a conversation with my brother the other day. Like, sometimes the best way to show your kid or show someone is through your own actions. And, like, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to talk about, I work hard. It's just not. It's just like when you see someone who's going from job to job, who's barely around, but is around, when they are around, they're very present. you just see work ethic without even having someone tell you, right? So I think early on, just seeing that from my mom, who I lived with, and then seeing it from my dad, who worked his ass off as an immigrant, owning a bodega in New York, in Manhattan. Like, both of them just lived a very blue collar, hardworking lifestyle. And me and my brother were just able to piggyback off of that and then utilize this in sports, utilize this as a student, utilize this now as a professional. And those things help form me who I am today. But there are crossroads along that journey that, even for me in the past 3 to 4 years, I've seen so much growth within myself because of the intentional decisions I've made to change my mindset.
Right.
And that's where it all comes from.
So you talked about your mom and your dad. So let me start with your mom. What does your mom mean to you?
My mom is like my heart, like, for real. Like, I get like emotional at times just thinking about, like, when you get older, you start realizing what sacrifice really is. And I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of clients that have kids now, and I see how tough it is to manage their work life, home life, family life, wife life. Like, there's so many obstacles that happen when you become a parent, right? Like, first of all, getting married is a big decision in someone's life.
Yeah.
Having kids is a substantial decision, because now you can't be selfish. You have to be selfless, and you're caring for a human that you created. And I just see how some people I know, like, they're busy as hell with 2-parent households, and they're hectic. They're thinking about, okay, someone has to pick them up from daycare and then put them to sleep. And there's so many logistics that go around being a parent. And I just thought to myself, like, damn, like, my mom did this on her own. Like, right? And I just think about that, and it gives me a ton of perspective and gratitude for how she was able to raise me and my brother as a single mom, raising 2 young men. How tough that must have been on her, of, like, not having a social life as much, not being able to go venture off and live like you would when you're in your 40s and you already have kind of solidified your lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So I think just seeing the sacrifice that she took for me and my brother to get us to the sports games, to get us to practices. In that moment when you're a kid, Mark, like, you don't realize that, damn, like, why couldn't my mom make it to this practice? I see all these other parents, but, like, it didn't really trigger to me that, like, she was going to work so that I could be here. And these are all things that have really put into perspective for me, that makes me appreciate what I have now, the relationship I have with my mom, and it just creates a different type of bond, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what my mom means to me.
Right. So I was in the same boat. I was living in DC, traveling up to Montgomery Village to play football. It was at 3-4 days a week. Just because, like, my parents had split at the time when I was in 6th grade. So was your relationship with your dad still as strong, just like from a distance? Or was it you understood the situation at the time, and, like, did it lead you anywhere else than like where you are now?
No, I think so. I mean, obviously, my father, like, me and my dad are tight. There's as close as we can be. Let me say that, because I think the biggest frustration I've always had with my dad was that there's just a language barrier. Like, my dad's a lot more traditional. If people have met my mom, like, she's way more Americanized. And just in terms of Western culture, she's really just sunken in terms of American culture. So at home, I speak English. Like, I don't speak Korean when I'm at home. But when I'm with my dad, like, it challenges me to brushing up on my Korean, because to have a better relationship with someone, you have to understand where they're at. And if they don't speak fluently in English, then, like, you can only get as so close as you can, right? But when I lived in Vegas and my parents were split, like, I would talk to my dad every other day on the phone. And, like, that would be when I would work on my Korean and, like, just continue to just build that relationship. So I've always been close with my dad from afar. Obviously, geographically, it's like when you're with friends that are local versus friends that are moved to a different state. Like, you try to keep that bond as strong as it is, but you have to be intentional with that. Like, you have to call, you have to send texts, and you have to do things back and forth. And it's not always a one-way street. It has to be from both parties. But I would say, obviously, like, through the years of growing up, like, me, my mom, my brother, it was like, we felt like it was us 3 against the world. But my dad was always there, just from afar. So I think we were always able to remain tight. Like, there was never a point where I didn't talk to my dad for, like, years, right? There was always communication.
I saw when we were at the Grindstone 100 miler, I remember one of the biggest moments that's like stood out to me, and it didn't even happen during the race, it was after the race. You had called your mom.
Yeah.
Like you FaceTimed your mom.
Yeah.
So like,
well, it was during
what
the
was
race.
In that? It was during the race, and then it was after. I remember you got to. It was after. So like, talk about that moment. Like, what was that moment like for you? And then like a two-part question, but like, what is the greatest thing your mom has given you, like wisdom-wise, and like you know, because I heard her say a few things. At the end, and I was like, wow, some powerful words. But
no, I think first how I felt. So Mark's talking about there's two moments. At mile 95, there was an aid station. And at this aid station was like one of the only spots that there was cellular connection. And just like any parent, just like any mom, like you're worried about your kid when they're in a mountain and you don't know what's happening for over 24 hours, right? Like any parent is gonna be somewhat concerned. Obviously, my crew, Mark, my buddy Kev, a bunch of people that helped me out were in communication with my mom sparingly because the connection was so bad. But in that moment at mile 95, Kev gave me his phone and she was on the phone and she basically was like, how you doing? Like X, Y, and Z. And obviously, you know, in that moment, like it was awesome just seeing a familiar face of a loved one and just to hear like her motivating words at that moment of like, you know, are you good? Are you safe? As well as her saying like, yo, finish strong, right? And like in my head, like I already knew that there was 5 miles left. Like at this point, I've come so far. Like there was no doubt in my mind I was going to finish this race. It was just a matter of how I was going to finish it. So that moment, it uplifted my spirits. I can't lie. Like just seeing her, right? And obviously everything was happening so fast. Like me and Darnell sprinted through the line and like we had just came to this aid station, just crushed the past 9 miles. And just seeing my mom, it really just did give me uplifting spirits. And then to Mark's point, at the end of the race, after I had time to kind of decompress, we also talked there because there's a good amount of connection at that spot, and she was just super proud that I was, you know, I finished it.
I was like, I was listening in because you were like, it was on speaker.
Yeah.
So it was so like, I feel like anyone that has ever had a mother and has like spoke words of like encouragement and you know, just overall like, you know, joyfulness that like their son, daughter has like accomplished something. It was kind of like that moment where it was like, it was heartfelt, right?
Yeah.
And you can understand it no matter if you didn't speak the same language, if you weren't the same race, you could understand that connection. So with that, so this race or the races that you do, like even though you're around a bunch of people at times, sometimes very isolated, is that like something that you who you are outside of like these events? Like do you prefer to be alone in some instances, or are you someone that feeds off of morale?
Yeah, I think, well, one, that's a great question. I think I'm both. I think I'm super comfortable in my own space. I'm super comfortable. I am as like, not that like I'm so full of myself that I'm so in love with myself, but like I'm very okay with my being in my own time, in my own space. Whether that's me reading a book, whether that's me listening to a podcast, whether that's me journaling or meditating or working out, like I enjoy that self-help, that personal time, because I think as people, like the biggest investment that you could ever do is not in the stocks, it's not in the S&P, it's not in crypto, like it's really in yourself. That's the biggest investment. That's the biggest asset that we all have as humans. So if you can't invest in yourself, right? Whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, relationally, if you're not investing in yourself, then what are you really doing, right? Like you could put your time and energy into all these different buckets, people, bars, clubbing, working out, whatever it is. But like at the end of the day, like if you're not really investing into yourself, can you say that you're bettering yourself? And that's just why I'm so comfortable in my own time. Now at the same time, Mark, you know me, like I'm so, as on the flip end, I'm just as comfortable going out to a bar or linking up for happy hour or doing whatever, X, Y, and Z, going on a hike with people, whatever it might be. So like, I think the ability to do both and be very comfortable in both is one of my strengths. I love the solitude. When I'm in that mountain on my own for 7 hours, no one talked to me. At the same time, when I saw Mark at 8:30 in the morning, that shit gave me energy. That shit gave me a hella juice, right? So when I saw Kev, when I saw Gary, whenever I was seeing people, like, I would be lying to you if that did not give me energy, right? So I think the ability to do both is one of my strengths, and I thoroughly enjoy both. Like, I love my solitude time at the same time. Like, I love creating relationships because I feel like my energy is just naturally contagious. So I want to spread that to people. I want to spread that with friends and family and associates or whoever it might be. It could be a stranger. So I think both would be my answer.
Yeah. So with all the milestones, I would say, that you accomplished thus far, what do you feel is your greatest one? If none, like, do you feel like you still yet to achieve that? But what has been your greatest accomplishment or milestone to this point?
I mean, like, one answer could be, like, honestly, how I feel sometimes, it's the next one.
Yeah.
On some real shit. Like, it's the next one, because after I finished the 100 miler, like, was that the most demanding challenge? Like, without a doubt, 100%. It was difficult. It was draining emotionally, physically, mentally, all of that. Like, being up for 29 hours is not an easy task for anyone. But I really do believe that, like, how my brain is wired, it's like, not that you want to get satisfied or content with what you've done in the past, or, you know, if you're in a job of how much money you've made or how much success you've created. I think for me, like, what keeps me pushing, what keeps me motivated, what keeps me driven is that it's the next thing. It's the next challenge. It's the next run. It's the next whatever. And I think that is who Matt Choi is, right? And I'm on this constant journey of, like, bettering myself. And this could be right now, maybe in this little time period, it is challenges, physical feats. I think physical challenges will always be part of my life, right? I think it's just a matter of, there'll be times where I scale it up. There'll be times where I scale it back. I think it's people, like, putting a challenge in front of you is the greatest way to create humility.
Yeah.
Greatest way, because when you're entering the unknown, you don't know how you're going to respond. You don't know what adversity you're going to hit, and it humbles you very quickly, because whenever I'm in these events, I'm not the best. I'm far from it. But that gives me something to chase, and it gives me something to push for.
So this is you're the first of the Element saga segment,
I love it.
Spin-off, whatever you want to call it, to the Green Light Talk. So with that being said, what does the word element mean to you? And do you feel like you live in your element most of the time, if not all the time?
Yeah, I think element it's kind of like being in your flow state, where, like, you're able to kind of dictate and control your path and control what's in front of you, in a sense, right? I think being in your element is just like that. It's a vibe, right? It's just like a feeling. It's you can't really even put it into words. It's just, you know, that when you're in it, that this is your space, right? And, like, years back, the football field was my element. Like, I was just so confident. Like, you put me on the field, you give me a football and the cleats, I'm in my shit. Now, kind of hung up the cleats, put them here, rest that right there. And now it's like, as people, you got to find what's the new element, right? Because as we age, as we grow, as we outgrow friendships, as we outgrow hobbies, like, you're going to redefine what your next or new element is going to be. And now it's just, I throw on a pair of running shoes, and I just know that regardless of where I'm at, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to enjoy myself, because I live a simple life. Like, you give me a pull-up bar, you give me a place to run, you give me shoes, and there's not many things I'm gonna complain about. So I think I definitely believe that I live to my element every day, because when I wake up in the morning, I think the biggest thing of winning in life is that if you're happy in the morning and you're able to enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the company that you're with, these things are what makes true happiness. It's not about the job, it's not about how much money, it's not about, you know, your stocks going up or down. It's just, I think if you're able to wake up and be grateful for what you have, that you're able to put 2 feet on the ground, to me, that's one, happiness, but also being in your own.
So, a great man once said, but they said, who you were 12 years ago, who you had to be adapt and change, right? And I feel like that's what you have done since the day I've known you. Continue to do it, and you know, the sky's the limit. So, thank you for coming